In the grand halls of the royal palace, the air was thick with tension. The galaxy's most powerful empire had always prided itself on tradition and honor, but today was different. Today, the people of the empire were going to witness something. That had never happened before a human being introduced as the royal husband. The princess, Lysara, stood tall at the front of the grand banquet hall. She was dressed in the finest robes of her people, her dark hair cascading down her back, like a river of night. Her eyes, the color of deep violet, were full of strength and determination. She had always been a leader, known throughout the galaxy for her skills in diplomacy and her fearlessness in battle. Yet today, it was her love for a human that would take center stage. Lysara had never expected to fall in love with someone. From Earth, she had always been surrounded by her own kind, those who shared the same heritage, the same power. But there had been something about Ethan, a human from a distant planet, that had caught her attention. It had started with a meeting between their worlds, a diplomatic exchange. At first, it had been simple talks about trade, peace, and the future of their people. But then something changed. In the midst of a conversation about intergalactic travel, Ethan had laughed, a genuine, carefree sound. That laugh had somehow made everything feel less serious, less like a war of words, and more like a shared understanding. Ethan wasn't like the others. He didn't care about her royal title or her strength. He saw her as just Lysara. He didn't bow to her like others did, and he didn't try to impress her with fancy words or gifts. Instead, he listened to her, truly listened. It made her laugh. It was something she hadn't realized. She needed someone who didn't see her as a symbol, but as a person. Their connection grew quickly, and soon it was impossible for Lysara to deny that she had fallen deeply in love. But love between their two species wasn't accepted by everyone, especially not by the royal family. Lysara's mother, Queen Aurelia, was the head of the empire and a woman of strict traditions. She believed in alliances, in marrying for power, and in keeping the bloodline pure. To her, Lysara's decision to marry a human was not just a personal choice, it was a betrayal of everything the royal family stood for. The royal court had always been a place of strict order. Queen's word was law, and anyone who dared defy her was punished severely. Lysara knew this better than anyone, but she also knew that this was not just about politics. It was about her heart, and her heart had chosen Ethan. As the doors to the banquet hall opened, the murmurs of the court fell silent. The queen, wearing her ceremonial crown, stood at the front of the room, her eyes cold and distant. Her presence alone demanded respect. But there was no respect in her gaze as it shifted to the man standing beside Lysara. Ethan was tall, with dark hair and the build of a soldier. He wore a simple but finely tailored suit, something his people had designed for formal occasions. There was nothing grand about his appearance, nothing that screamed royalty. Yet when he looked at Lysara, his eyes were full of admiration and love. It was clear to everyone in the room that his feelings for her were genuine. The queen's gaze flicked back and forth between Lysara and Ethan. Her lips tightened, and her hands clenched at her sides. She had not expected this. She had not expected her daughter to choose someone from another species, let alone a human. Her people had never interacted with humans in any meaningful way, and now one of them was standing in her court. The room was filled with silence as the queen spoke, her voice cold and steady. "Lysara," she said, her eyes narrowing, "who is this man you have brought into my presence?" Lysara stood tall, her gaze never wavering. She could feel the weight of her mother's judgment, but she had made her choice. "This is my husband, Ethan," she said, her voice clear and firm. "He is human, but he is also brave, kind, and worthy of my love." The words hung in the air, and the entire court gasped. It was unheard of for a royal to marry outside their species, let alone someone from such a distant planet. The queen's eyes narrowed further as she took a step forward, her voice sharp. "You expect me to accept this? A human as your husband? Do you not remember your place, Lysara?" Lysara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I remember my place. I am the princess of this empire, and I will do what is right for me. I choose love over tradition, and Ethan, he is my choice." Ethan stepped forward then, his voice calm but filled with sincerity. "Your Majesty, I know this is unexpected, but I love your daughter with all my heart. I will protect her with my life, and I will stand by her side through whatever challenges come our way." The queen's gaze softened, for just a moment, but only for a second. Then her coldness returned. "You speak of love, human, but you do not understand the responsibilities that come with this title. You are not of our kind. You will never be truly one of us." But Lysara stepped forward, her hand resting on Ethan's. "I do not need him to be one of you, mother. He is one of me." The queen remained silent, her eyes searching the faces in the room. She could see the doubt in the eyes of her court, the whispers behind their hands. There were some who agreed with Lysara, and there were others who would never accept this union. But there was one thing the queen couldn't deny. Her daughter was no longer the girl she had raised. Lysara had become something more, and she had found love in a place the queen had never expected. In the quiet that followed, the queen finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "This marriage will not be easy, Lysara. The galaxy will not accept it, and neither will the court." Lysara nodded, her eyes never leaving her mother's. "We will make them accept it. Together, Ethan and I will prove that love is stronger than anything else." And so, the stage was set for a journey that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The queen's approval had not been given, but Lysara knew that the most important thing was her own conviction. She had chosen love, and nothing, not even the queen's disapproval, could take that away. Ask ChatGPT. In the days following the banquet, the atmosphere in the royal palace grew tense. The grand halls, once filled with the laughter and joy of celebrations, now felt heavy with the weight of unspoken words. The queen, Aurelia, had retreated to her private chambers, leaving the court to whisper amongst themselves about the unexpected marriage. The news had traveled fast, reaching not only the royal family, but every corner of the galaxy. Some praised Lysara's boldness, while others scorned her for defying tradition. For Queen Aurelia, it was not just the union of her daughter with a human that troubled her, was the challenge to everything she had built. The royal bloodline, the empire, and the ways of her ancestors, all depended on carefully chosen alliances, often forged through marriage. She had spent her life ensuring that her daughter would follow the path set before her. And now, Lysara had broken that path, choosing a man from a distant world that no one in the royal court had considered a worthy match. The queen sat by her window, looking out over the sprawling gardens that surrounded the palace. The beautiful flowers, a symbol of the empire's strength, seemed to mock her current situation. Everything had always been in its proper place, in perfect order. But now, her world felt out of control. She could not ignore the discomfort in her heart, the nagging voice that whispered that she was losing her grip. But she also knew that Lysara was no child. Her daughter was strong-willed, fierce, and determined. She had always been that way, ever since she was little. And now, the choices Lysara made reflected her own strength. It was hard for the queen to admit, but there was a part of her that respected Lysara's decision. Even if it went against everything she had taught her, the queen's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of soft footsteps. The doors to her chamber opened, and there stood Lysara, her expression calm but serious. She had come to speak to her mother, but she had no illusions that the conversation would be easy. "Mother," Lysara began, her voice steady. "We need to talk." Aurelia looked at her daughter, her face a mixture of frustration and sadness. "I don't know what more there is to say, Lysara. You've made your choice, a human. Do you understand the consequences of this decision?" Lysara walked closer to her mother, her gaze unwavering. "I do understand. But this is my choice, and I will stand by it. I love Ethan, and I believe in him. He's not just some outsider. He's a man who's willing to fight for what's right, even when everyone else doubts him." The queen's eyes narrowed. "You speak of him as if he is some great hero. But he is not of our world, Lysara. His people have no place in the politics of this galaxy. He is nothing more than a symbol of your rebellion." Lysara's heart sank at her mother's words, but she refused to back down. "You are wrong. He is more than that. He has shown me a kind of love that is rare in our world, unconditional, genuine. I would rather stand beside him, Even if it means losing everything, then live without that. The queen stood up, her posture regal, but her voice trembled slightly. And what of your duty? What of the Empire? Do you think this marriage will strengthen our alliance with the other planets, or will it make us the laughing stock of the galaxy? I am still your daughter, mother, Lysara said softly. I still care for the Empire, and I will do everything I can to protect it. But my love for Ethan doesn't make me weaker. It makes me stronger. Together we can build something that is truly united. Aurelia looked away, unable to meet her daughter's eyes. She had spent so many years trying to control every aspect of Lysara's life. And now she was faced with a reality she had never expected. Her daughter was no longer a child she could control. Lysara was an adult, with her own choices and her own dreams. The queen had to come to terms with that, even if it shattered the world she had spent so long creating. I don't know if I can accept this, Lysara, the queen whispered, her voice filled with regret. You have chosen a path that may lead to disaster. I cannot simply ignore the risks. You've made your decision, but what about the future? Lysara stepped forward, gently placing her hand on her mother's arm. The future isn't something we can predict, Mother, but we can shape it with our actions. If we allow fear to control us, we will never move forward. The galaxy is changing, and we need to change with it. This marriage is part of that change. The queen looked down at her daughter's hand, the warmth of it spreading through her. She had always known Lysara was different, but she had never imagined that her daughter's path would challenge everything she held dear. And in that moment, she felt a spark of something that might have been hope, or perhaps acceptance. The queen wasn't sure. You speak as if you already know what is to come, Aurelia said, her voice low. I am not so sure. What will the galaxy say when they see a human as your husband? Will they accept him? Threat. I can't control what others think, Mother, Lysara said firmly, but I can control what I do. Ethan and I will prove to them that this alliance is not a weakness, but a strength. We are stronger together, and nothing will change that. Aurelia looked at her daughter for a long moment, her expression softening. She had always known Lysara to be headstrong and independent, but now she saw a woman who was ready to lead, ready to make her own choices, no matter the cost. I don't know if I will ever accept him as my son-in-law, the queen said quietly, but I will always love you, Lysara. Yes. And I will support you even if it means walking into the unknown. Lysara smiled, the weight of the conversation lifting slightly from her shoulders. Thank you, Mother. That means more than you know. The queen turned away, her gaze returning to the gardens outside. It was clear that she had not fully accepted the marriage, but she had taken the first step toward understanding it. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was certain. The relationship between mother and daughter would never be the same. And perhaps that was the first step towards something even greater than either of them could imagine, asked ChatGPT. The royal palace was in chaos. The court, once calm and ordered, now felt like a storm waiting to erupt. The news of Lysara's marriage to Ethan, a human, had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Many questioned her decision, while others feared the consequences of her actions. The galaxy was a vast place. Not all of its inhabitants shared the same open-mindedness that Lysara and Ethan had found in each other. Aurelia, though reluctantly accepting her daughter's choice, could not ignore the fact that the union had caused unease across the empire. The royal family's power, built on tradition, was being questioned. Factions within the court began to stir, some calling for the marriage to be dissolved before it caused irreversible damage. Others were more subtle in their discontent, whispering behind closed doors about how a human could never truly be accepted as part of their world. But it wasn't just the political fallout that worried Queen Aurelia. It was the safety of the empire. Despite her personal feelings about the marriage, she had always been a protector of her people. Galaxy had enemies, many of them feared. The rise of the human race and their unpredictable nature. Now that her daughter had chosen to marry one, it was clear that the stakes had risen higher than ever before. The queen made a decision. There would be a trial to test Ethan. If he could prove himself worthy, if he could show that he was not just a symbol of rebellion, but someone who could stand by her daughter's side, she would accept him. But if he failed, the the marriage would be called into question once more. The trial would not be easy. It would be designed to test not only Ethan's physical strength, but his mental sharpness and emotional resilience. Lysara was aware of the trial, but she did not believe Ethan would fail. She knew him better than anyone, and she trusted him completely. However, the pressure was mounting. The trial would be a spectacle, and if Ethan faltered, it would not just be his failure, it would be her own. She had to stand by him no matter the cost. The day of the trial, the palace grounds were filled with spectators, members of the royal court, soldiers, and advisors. The trial was not just about strength. It was a chance for Ethan to prove that he belonged in this galaxy, that he could protect Lysara and defend their future. The crowd was tense, their whispers of doubt filling the air as Ethan was led to the center of the arena. The trial began with a series of physical challenges. Ethan was first tested in hand-to-hand combat. A skilled warrior from the royal guard, a large alien named Karak, was chosen to face him. Karak was known for his immense strength, a fearsome fighter who had never lost a duel. The challenge seemed impossible, but Ethan stood firm, his expression determined. Lysara watched from the sidelines, her heart in her throat. She knew Ethan was strong, but she had never seen him fight like this before. The match was brutal, with Karak using every ounce of his strength to overpower Ethan. But Ethan was quick and clever, using his speed and agility to dodge Karak's attacks. As the fight wore on, it became clear that Ethan was holding his own. With one final move, he managed to disarm Karak, sending him to the ground. The crowd erupted in stunned silence. The first challenge was over. Ethan had proven himself in combat, but the trials were far from finished. The next test was mental. He was to solve a series of complex puzzles designed to test his intelligence and reasoning skills. The puzzles were based on the royal family's ancient codes, ones that even the most learned minds had struggled to decipher. But Ethan, with his sharp mind, worked through the puzzles one by one, solving them faster than anyone had expected.
Wow.
His ability to think quickly and adapt impressed even the most skeptical members of the court. The final test, however, was the hardest. Ethan was asked to confront a deep personal fear, something that no one else knew about. It was a test of his emotional strength. In the center of the arena, a holographic projection was activated. It was a scene from Earth, a vision of a burning city, a place Ethan had once called home. The memory of his world's destruction, the fear, the loss, was something that had haunted him for years. Lysara saw the pain in his eyes as the scene played. Out before him, she knew what this meant to him. He had lost everything in the war that had ravaged his planet. To face it again, in front of so many people, was not only difficult, it was terrifying. But Ethan did not flinch. He stood tall, watching the vision unfold, and then, with a deep breath, he spoke. "This is my past. It shaped who I am today, but it does not define me. I will not be ruled by fear." The crowd was silent, and for a moment, no one moved. It was as if they were all waiting for the outcome, for some sign that Ethan's bravery had been enough. And then, slowly, a ripple of applause began, soft at first, then growing louder. The court, the royal guard, and even Queen Aurelia herself were moved by Ethan's strength. Lysara rushed forward, her heart filled with pride. She knew that this trial was more than just a test. It was a moment that would change everything for Ethan, for her, and for the galaxy. As Ethan stood beside her, his face tired but triumphant, Lysara smiled. She had always believed in him, and now everyone else did too. The queen, watching from her throne, nodded slowly. There was no longer any doubt in her mind. Ethan had passed the trial, not because of his physical strength or his intelligence, but because of his heart. He had faced his fears and stood strong, not for himself, but for the woman he loved. The trial had been a test of many things: strength, intelligence, and courage. But it had also been a test of acceptance. And as Ethan stood beside Lysara, the queen knew that the galaxy was changing. The future was no longer a place of division, but of unity. Lysara had chosen her path, and now with Ethan by her side, She was ready to lead them into that future, for the first time. Queen Aurelia allowed herself to believe that this union might just be the beginning of something greater than any of them had imagined. Ask ChatGPT. The day after Ethan's successful trials, the palace felt strangely quiet. Despite the victory, an uneasy stillness hung in the air, a reminder that not all was as it seemed. Queen Aurelia, though she had accepted Ethan's place in Lysara's life, still had doubts. Her mind was filled with questions about the future of their people, about the true nature of the human race, and about the political enemies who were surely watching this marriage unfold with suspicion. Lysara, however, was determined to enjoy her moment of peace. She had never been more certain of her choice to marry Ethan. As she stood with him in the palace gardens, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, she felt a sense of calm. It had been a long road to this point, and though the future was uncertain, she knew that together they could face anything. Ethan, his face lit with a rare smile, leaned closer to her. "You did it," he said softly, his voice full of pride. "You were right, this is the beginning of something bigger." Lysara's smile was bright, but a shadow of doubt crossed her face. "I hope you're right. But there are still so many who do not accept us. Ethan, the Queen, the court, the galaxy. They may never see us the way we see each other." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "We can't control what others think, but we can control what we do, and we're stronger together." Lysara's heart swelled with love, but she knew Ethan's words were true. They were stronger together. But the challenges they faced were far from over. There were still enemies, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment when they could strike. That night, as the two of them sat in the royal chambers, a strange noise interrupted the peaceful silence. A soft beeping sound came from a small device hidden in the corner of the room. Lysara's eyes widened in recognition. It was a communication device, one that had been used by the royal family's most trusted advisors. She stood quickly, her hand reaching for the device. "Someone is trying to contact us," she said, her voice low and tense. Ethan stood, his expression serious. "Who is it?" "I'm not sure," Lysara replied, her fingers hesitating over the buttons. She knew the device was secure, but the urgency in its tone suggested something was wrong. It's coming from a secure channel. With a flick of her wrist, the device activated, and the holographic image of a familiar face appeared in front of them. It was one of Lysara's most trusted advisors, a man named Oren, who had served her family for years. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with worry. "Princess Lysara," Oren's voice crackled through the device. "I regret to inform you that there has been a breach. Someone within the royal court is conspiring against you." Lysara's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? Who would dare betray us?" Oren's expression hardened. "I cannot say for certain, but I have uncovered information that suggests a plot to overthrow the royal family. Someone is using the marriage to your advantage to manipulate the situation and bring about chaos." Lysara's mind raced. She had known there were factions within the court who opposed her marriage to Ethan, but to learn that someone was actively working against them was another matter entirely. She turned to Ethan, her voice filled with concern. "What should we do?" "We need to find out who is behind this," Ethan said, his tone calm but filled with determination. "Can't let anyone tear us apart." Oren's hologram flickered, and he leaned closer to the device. "I've gathered a few names, but it's not enough to make an arrest. The conspirators are careful, hiding their tracks behind false reports and lies. We need proof." Lysara nodded, her mind already planning the next steps. "Thank you, Oren. We'll be careful. But this will not tear us apart. We will uncover the truth." As the hologram faded, Lysara and Ethan exchanged a look of resolve. The quiet peace they had been enjoying was shattered, replaced by the harsh reality of their position. The galaxy was not a safe place, and their marriage had made them vulnerable. There were those who feared change, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that the status quo remained intact. The next few days were filled with tension as Lysara and Ethan worked in secret to uncover the truth. They knew the conspirators would be watching their every move, so they kept their plans hidden from everyone. It wasn't long before they discovered something disturbing. The conspiracy was far deeper than they had imagined. There were reports of strange shipments arriving at the palace cargo ships, loaded with mysterious materials. No one knew exactly what was in the crates, but the rumors suggested weapons. Lysara and Ethan's investigation led them to a powerful member of the court, one who had outwardly supported the marriage but secretly worked to undermine it. The name they uncovered was that of Lord Myler, a respected figure with connections to many of the galaxy's most influential families. Myler had been a vocal supporter of the royal family's traditional values. He had spoken against Lysara's marriage from the beginning, claiming that it would weaken the Empire's standing in the galaxy. Now it seemed he was using that very sentiment to orchestrate a rebellion from within. Lysara's blood ran cold as she realized the depth of the betrayal. Lord Myler had been working behind the scenes, using the marriage as a distraction to rally support for a coup. The information they had uncovered painted a grim picture. If they didn't act quickly, the Empire would be torn apart by civil war. "We have to confront him," Ethan said, his voice full of anger. "We can't let him get away with this." Lysara nodded, her determination burning brighter than ever. "We'll stop him, together." Well, as they made their plans, Lysara couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just Lord Miller's betrayal. Someone, somewhere, was pulling the strings. And if they didn't uncover the full truth, the galaxy would remain in danger. The hidden truth was out there, waiting to be discovered. And Lysara and Ethan were determined to find it no matter the cost. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow across the royal gardens. Lysara stood at the window of her chambers, looking out at the horizon. The palace, once a place of safety and certainty, now felt like a battleground. Was a whirlwind of thoughts about Ethan, the conspiracy, and the growing unrest in the royal court. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every movement, every word, felt like it was being observed by unseen eyes. The tension in the palace had become almost unbearable. The whispers in the halls were louder than ever, and Lysara knew that it was only a matter of time before someone would act on the growing hatred toward her marriage. Despite the challenges, Lysara had not faltered in her commitment to Ethan. She believed in him with all her heart, and together they had already uncovered the dangerous plot orchestrated by Lord Myler. But there was still one problem that loomed large in her mind: her mother. Queen Aurelia's disapproval had been a constant presence. Lysara knew her mother better than anyone knew the queen's unyielding pride and her deep love for the empire. But she also knew that the queen's views were shaped by years of tradition and power, and that was not something that could be easily changed. Lysara had tried to reason with her, to make her see that love and unity were more important than old customs. But the queen had remained steadfast in her belief that Lysara's marriage to a human would bring ruin to their family. Lysara turned away from the window as she heard a soft knock at the door. Ethan entered, his face serious but gentle. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Lysara nodded, though she could see the worry in his eyes. "Fine, it's just everything is happening so fast. The plot against us, the court, my mother." She trailed off, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Ethan walked over to her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone, Lysara. We'll face it together. We've already proven that we're stronger than they think." Lysara smiled weakly, appreciating his support. But the weight of the situation was still heavy on her shoulders. "I know, but I don't want to keep fighting forever. I don't want to lose my family, my mother." Gaze softened. "I understand. But remember, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for a future where love and unity can overcome the divisions of the past. What you're doing is important, not just for you, but for the whole galaxy." Lysara took a deep breath and nodded, trying to find comfort in his words. "I just wish my mother could see that." Meanwhile, Queen Aurelia sat alone in her private chambers, her mind racing. The days had been long and filled with worry, but the unease she felt now was unlike anything she had ever known. She had watched her daughter stand tall beside Ethan, proud and unyielding in her love. The queen had always prided herself on being in control, on maintaining the order of the empire, but Lysara's defiance had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Aurelia had spent her life guarding the legacy of the royal family, ensuring that power remained within their bloodline. She'd never considered the possibility that someone from outside their world could enter their family and challenge everything she had built. The thought alone felt like a threat. But the truth was, as much as she resisted, Lysara's decision had already changed things. The court was divided, the galaxy was watching, and there was no turning back. As Aurelia sat in her chambers, staring out at the palace grounds, a soft knock on the door broke her thoughts. She turned to see one of her advisors standing in the doorway, his face grim. "Your Majesty, there is something you must see," he said quietly, holding out a small data pad. Aurelia raised an eyebrow, but took the pad from him, her fingers moving quickly over the screen. As the information appeared, her eyes widened in shock. It was the evidence Lysara and Ethan had uncovered, the conspiracy led by Lord Myler to overthrow the royal family. The plot was deeper and more dangerous than she had realized. There were connections to factions throughout the galaxy, powerful families who feared the changes Lysara's marriage would bring. Aurelia's heart pounded as she absorbed the details. She had always prided herself on knowing everything that went on in her empire. But this was different. She had been blind to the brewing storm. The realization hit her like a hammer. Lysara's marriage wasn't just a personal choice. It was a symbol of change, and that change was frightening to those who had grown comfortable with the old ways, but more importantly, it was the key to uniting the galaxy, a future where unity and love could triumph over fear and division. The queen stood, her eyes hard with resolve. She knew what she had to do. Later that evening, Lysara was summoned to her mother's chambers. Her heart raced as she entered the room, unsure of what to expect. Queen Aurelia sat at her desk, her posture rigid, but her eyes softened with something Lysara hadn't seen in a long-time genuine concern. "Lysara," the queen began, her voice steady, "there are things we need to discuss." Lysara nodded, her chest tightening. She had no idea where this conversation would lead, but she had always respected her mother, even when they disagreed. "What is it, mother?" Aurelia took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I've seen the evidence, the conspiracy, Lord Miller's betrayal." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "I was wrong to doubt you, Lysara. I was wrong to fight against your marriage. You were right all along. Love is stronger than tradition. And I see now that you and Ethan, you have something special. Something that can bring change to this empire." Lysara's eyes widened, her heart swelling with relief and disbelief. For the first time, her mother had acknowledged the truth. "You mean," the queen nodded, her gaze unwavering, "I'm sorry for all the hurt I caused, for all the doubt. I will stand by you, Lysara. I will stand by both of you." Lysara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had never imagined this day would come, but here it was. Her mother, the queen, had accepted her choice. And with that acceptance, a new chapter began, not just for Lysara and Ethan, but for the galaxy itself. "I promise, mother, we will protect this empire together," Lysara said, her voice filled with conviction. The queen's eyes softened as she reached out, placing a hand on her daughter's. Together, she agreed. And in that moment, Lysara knew that nothing would ever be the same. The future was uncertain, but with her mother by her side and Ethan beside her, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Ask ChatGPT. The royal palace had never felt as alive as it did now. Lysara stood on the balcony of her chambers, looking out over the vast city below. The lights of the capital city sparkled like stars in the night, but it wasn't the lights that filled her with hope. It was the feeling of change in the air. The events of the past few weeks had brought with them many challenges, but they had also brought something greater: unity. Lysara had been married to Ethan for several months now, and despite the turmoil, their love had only grown stronger. The trials, the conspiracy, and the doubt had tested them both, but they had emerged victorious. Queen Aurelia had finally accepted their union, and with her support, the empire had begun to shift. Slowly but surely, the court had started to embrace the idea that unity between species wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. But there was still much work to be done. Ethan walked up behind Lasara, his warm presence comforting her. She could feel the weight of his gaze on her, and without turning around, she smiled. "I never imagined things would be like this," she said softly. "I thought it would be just us against the world, but now ... It feels like the world is starting to see us." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice filled with warmth. "It's not just us, Lasara. It's you, me, and the future we're building together. And that future is beginning to take shape." Lysara turned to face him, her violet eyes searching his. "I still can't believe everything that's happened. The conspiracy, the rebellion, the doubt from the court. And yet here we are, together. But there are still those who oppose us. The galaxy isn't as open-minded as we hoped it would be." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "I know, but we can't change the entire galaxy overnight. What we've done here, what you've done, isn't just about changing minds. It's about showing them what's possible. It's about setting an example." Lasara looked out over the city again, her thoughts drifting. "I used to wonder if we could ever make this work. If love could really be stronger than all the things that divide us. And now, with you by my side, I see that it can. But how do we change the minds of those who still think we're wrong?" Ethan took her hand in his grip firm and reassuring. "One step at a time. You've already shown them that you're a leader, not just a princess. You've earned their respect. Now we just need to keep moving forward." Just then, there was a soft knock on the door. Lysara and Ethan exchanged a glance before Lysara called out, "Come in." The door opened to reveal one of the palace guards, his face serious. "Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence in the council chambers. There is something important to discuss." Lysara's heart skipped a beat. "Of course, we'll be there shortly." As the guard left, Lysara turned to Ethan. "I wonder what this is about. It's rare for Mother to call a council meeting on short notice." Ethan smiled reassuringly. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The two of them made their way to the council chambers, the tension in the air growing with each step. As they entered the large ornate room, they found Queen Aurelia already seated at the head of the table. She looked up as they entered, her expression calm but serious. "Lasara, Ethan," the Queen greeted them. "Thank you for coming. There's something we need to discuss, something that will affect the future of our people and the galaxy." Lasara took a seat beside her mother, Ethan standing beside her. "What is it, Mother?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. A deep breath before speaking. "The conspiracy has been dealt with. Lord Mylar has been removed from the council, and his allies have been exposed. The court has been shaken, but they are beginning to understand that this marriage is not a threat, it is a new beginning. But there are still those in the galaxy who are unwilling to change. They will continue to resist." Lasara's brow furrowed. "What are we supposed to do? We've already shown them that love can unite us, that change is possible." The Queen nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know, but some will always resist, especially those who hold on to the old ways of power. There are still many factions who see this union as a threat to their influence. We must be prepared to defend what we've built." Ethan's voice was firm. "We'll defend it, no matter the cost. But we don't want to fight forever. We want to show the galaxy that unity is the way forward." The Queen's eyes softened. "I agree. That's why I've called you both here. We need to take action. The galaxy is ready for change, but we must lead the charge. I propose we form a new alliance, one that will unite different species across the galaxy, not just in political terms, but in a shared vision for the future." Lasara's eyes widened in surprise. "An alliance? You mean bring together those who support us?" The Queen nodded. "Yes, but it's more than just support. This will be a movement, a shift in how we see each other. We will show the galaxy that cooperation, not division, is the path forward." Lasara turned to Ethan, her heart filled with excitement. "This is it. This is what we've been working toward." Ethan smiled. "It's the future we've always dreamed. The queen looked at them both, her gaze steady. I believe in this. I believe in you, Lysara. Together we will create a new era, new way of thinking. One where the past doesn't dictate the future. Lysara's heart swelled with pride as she looked at her mother. For the first time, she truly felt that her family was united. Queen had come to understand the importance of love, of unity, and of looking beyond the boundaries that had divided their people for so long. We will do this, Lysara said, her voice filled with determination. We will lead the galaxy into a new era, together. The queen nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. Together, she agreed. And in that moment, Lysara knew that the future was brighter than ever. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Ethan by her side and her mother's support, she felt ready to face whatever challenges came their way. The galaxy was on the brink of a new beginning, one where unity, not division, would shape the future. And Lysara, the human woman who had defied the odds, would lead them all into that future, asked ChatGPT.